Okay, welcome to part 4. Like I said in part 3, in this video we are going to be testing out our login system that we created, or our login function, and also we're going to be checking out this code for silly typos, which is something I didn't do in the last part, so we'll do that sort of as we go along. Anyway, so let's go back to our init file, and now we'll use this function that we created to make sure that the user entered the right password. So inside, once we've worked out that the user has submitted the form to this page, we can use the validate credentials function to check to make sure that they submitted something that was in the database. So we can do if validate credentials, yep, and we can just pass in the username and password directly, like so, lowercase r. And if this is not equal to false, this means that they have logged in. They're allowed to access this page. So inside here, we need to sort of log them in, but we'll deal with that in a moment, because there is one more thing I want to mention. The reason we're checking not equals false is that this returns their ID, like I said, or false if they're an invalid user. So not equals false means they are a valid user, and also well, yeah, that's it, and that should be capital post. Right, so inside here what we need to do is set the session variable user ID equal to the user's ID, but we don't know the user's ID. That's returned by this validate credentials function. So what we could do is just have this like this. Obviously it'd say ID, not IDs, and then we could check if user ID not equals false here. However, there is a slightly neater way to do it. What you can do is define the variable in line, so you can do user ID equals, like so. However, that causes a syntax error. What you need to do is put brackets around the definition part, so that is the start of the variable and the end of the function, and then you can do that. It's essentially the same as how you do it with a while loop for MySQL. You do while row equals. It's essentially the same as that. Anyway, so then you can use this variable from for the rest of this page. So we can just set it equal to set the session variable equal to it there. So once we've determined they have logged in, which is inside these nested ifs here, and the reason, by the way, that I'm not just having it like this is that that's quite a long line. It looks a little bit messy. So yeah. Anyway, so inside here we can use the header function to redirect them to the inbox page. So we'll just do header index.php page equals inbox. And then because the browser has moved on, we don't need to run any of the following code, so we can just do a quick die like that. So just to go over what's sort of happening here. If the user has submitted the form, is what this check's doing here, and then we've created a function which returns the user's ID, or false if the username and password combination is incorrect. So if their username is valid, is what this check says, we set their user ID, well, we put it into the session, which indicates that they are logged in, to the way we do that down here. So if not, this if, well, it won't, we'll just sort of go here in terms of where the code sort of execution goes, if that makes sense. So eventually what we'll run next is this check here, which checks to see if the session variable is empty. So if they enter a wrong password, this block won't run, so this session variable won't have been set, so they'll be sent back to the login page. So what we can do is on the login page, if I just go to the login page, we can do a sort of little PHP check at the top here to see if the form data is set. So if the form data is set and they're still on this page, that means the password is wrong, because that means that they've submitted the data, it's been processed up here, but this hasn't happened because they've been sent back here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So we can just go back to the let's see, the login page. Sorry, that's not quite right. If they're still on the login page, they won't go anywhere, it'll just process through, but same effect. Anyway, so go back to the login page. What we can do is do a simple check up here. So I'm going to add a PHP block, It says if is set post username. No, you don't use username. Yeah, and post user password. We can just use the echo sort of thingy function, I guess, not really a function, to show an error message. So div class equals message, second class equals error, and the message is going to be just login failed. I'm not feeling very imaginative. Okay, so that's that. So actually what I said earlier about the page that this form submits to is not strictly true. It will still log them in if you submitted it to like inbox. However, if the login failed, they'd be redirected back here, and these post variables would not be preserved, so this message wouldn't show up. So yeah, that's a slight difference. Anyway, so we should be ready to test this all out now. So let's go to our browser and reload this page. No syntax errors. I'm impressed. Anyway, so let's try logging in with something that's wrong. So I'll just do that, and I'll get my password wrong. Hit update password. No. Okay, I've spelt call to undefined function validate credentials. So I must have defined the. Oh, okay. Sorry, I haven't included the library files. Oh, pro day. So obviously these files where we define the function, so user.inc.php needs to be included. So let's just do that underneath our MySQL connection. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a simple include line, and we want to include the core path. So we want to do everything relative to this core path variable /inc/user.inc.php. So that should work now. So let's go back to our browser, reload, resend, and then we get login failed because I entered the wrong password. So now if we enter the correct password, which I think was you can see we get redirected to the inbox page. So yeah, there you go, that's our login system working. The final part of this is the logout page. So what I'm going to do is go to the inbox page and add a link to the logout page. That makes sense, because one of the things we might want to do from the inbox is just log straight out again, because that's logical. So let's go to the let's go back to our code and go to the inbox page here, which is currently completely blank, and we'll just add a div which is going to have the class of actions, which just represents some sort of styling. I'll just show you that actually. So div actions, I believe, is, where is it? Somewhere. It's somewhere. Okay, it might be nowhere. Hang on. Yeah, okay, apparently there is no style with the name actions, so that's pretty pointless. But anyway, well, whatever. So going back to the inbox page, let's just add some links to, well, one link for now. So this is like the menu essentially. So we're going to add a tag. Its link is going to be index.php and page equals logout, not login, out, and its sort of text is going to be log out. Okay, so now we can reload our inbox page, and we should see a logout link, which we do. So we click that, we can see you have been logged out. However, we haven't actually been logged out because I just put this message sort of static on the screen. So if I just go back and hit reload, you can see we stay on the inbox page because we haven't been logged out at all. So what we need to do is code the code to log out the user, and this is really simple. All we need to do is on the logout page, just at the top, we just need to add one line of PHP session destroy, which will just unset all of the session variables. Essentially, it removes all the session variables. So it will now, after this call, session will just be an empty array, like so. You can also do that as well, just point of interest. Anyway, let's just reload the page one more time, and then I'll try and go back again, but you can see this time we get redirected to the login page. Because we're not logged in, we can't go on the index page. So there you go, that's as far as we're going with our login system. I'm not going to be including a register system, because that'd make it a whole lot more complicated, and I've already gone through 4 parts without actually getting to the point of the series. So yeah, that's that. So actually, at the start of this, I said that part 8-ish would be the start of the private messaging stuff, and actually we're starting the private messaging stuff on part 5, which is pretty good. So come back for part 5, and we'll make a start on the whole private messaging thing.